So, what can we really learn from those massive financial earthquakes that just seem to shake our world every few years? Well, in this explainer, we're going to decode the hard lessons from past crises. Why? To build a financial foundation that can pretty much withstand anything. Let's dive in.
Think back for a second. Two moments, right? Just over a decade apart, and they changed everything. You had 2008, when the entire global financial system just about collapsed. Then, boom, 2020, a virus shuts down the whole world. Two totally different triggers, but for millions and millions of people, that financial shock, it felt exactly the same.
All of a sudden, that stability people thought they had, gone, literally overnight. Homes were seized.
And careers people spent decades building, they just vanished.
So, you've got a banking failure on one hand, a global pandemic on the other. On the surface, you couldn't get two more different things, right?
And yet, when you really look at the financial fallout for regular people, they taught the exact same brutal lesson.
And this right here is the key to all of it. A crisis doesn't create the financial disaster for a person. No, it just shines a giant, unflattering spotlight on the cracks that were already there. All it does is expose the fragility.
So, let's talk about that, the great revealing. It's time to put our finances under the microscope.
First up, redefining your wealth, because here's the first big lesson. It's not actually about what you earn.
You know how we're all taught to equate a big salary with success? Well, crises teach us a very different lesson. Income is fleeting. Wealth, and I mean real wealth, that's what's left over. It's what survives after the paycheck stops, or the client leaves, or the business goes under. It's the part that actually lasts.
And that brings us to the exact opposite of being wealthy, which is being leveraged. Oh man, this is the trap so many high earners fall into. They make great money, but their lifestyle demands every single cent of it. You take away just one paycheck and the whole house of cards collapses. That's not freedom, that's a high-wire act with absolutely no safety net.
So how does this even happen? Well, it's a quiet, kind of sneaky process. It goes like this. The raise comes in. Awesome. Then the lifestyle gets an upgrade, a nicer car, a bigger place. Your expenses just naturally rise to meet that new income. And look, it feels like you're making progress. But with every single upgrade, your fixed costs go up. And your actual freedom, the ability to just walk away or survive a rough patch, that quietly shrinks.
And it all boils down to this really critical shift in mindset. See, the real purpose of money isn't just to buy more stuff. Its highest, its best use is to buy you independence, to buy you control over your own time and your own options.
Okay, so let's get practical. Building a resilient foundation. If wealth is really about independence, how do you build up your financial defenses? Well, it all starts by playing defense first.
Your number one defensive tool? It's liquidity, just plain old cash. An emergency fund isn't sexy, right? It's not going to give you flashy returns, but its job is absolutely critical. It buys you time. Think of it as oxygen. It gives you the time you need to avoid selling your investments when the market is crashing, the time to say no thank you to a terrible job you'd otherwise have to take out of pure desperation, and the time to avoid digging yourself into a hole of high-interest debt just to keep the lights on.
And speaking of debt, debt is the ultimate mistake amplifier. A small financial blunder on its own, okay, that's a lesson learned. But that exact same mistake, when it's funded by debt, it becomes a full-blown crisis. It's like putting your mistakes on steroids. Just think about the housing bubble. The mistake was thinking, oh, prices only go up. But it was the massive amounts of debt that turned that simple mistake into a global catastrophe.
This really gets to the core of what resilience is. It's not just about trying to make more and more money from your one job. It's about getting rid of single points of failure. Ask yourself, what happens if that one job disappears? It's like a stool with one leg, super wobbly. Having multiple income streams, a side hustle, some freelance gigs, maybe rental income, that's not just a strategy for getting rich, it's a survival strategy. You're building more legs for your stool.
All right, next up, playing the long game. So you've built up your defenses, now what? How do you actually build that lasting, durable wealth? Well, spoiler alert, it's not about finding the next hot stock. It's about taking the slow, patient path.
You know, the most powerful force in all of finance is compounding. But let's be honest, it has a major PR problem. Because for years, it feels incredibly, unbelievably slow. It's kind of boring, actually.
You're saving, you're investing, and for the longest time, it just doesn't look like much is happening at all.
Yeah, you'll see a little bit of steady growth. It's progress, sure, but it's not changing your life. And this is the point where it's so easy to get discouraged and just think, this isn't working.
But then, after maybe 10, 15, 20 years of just being consistent, something starts to happen. The curve begins to bend upwards. The growth starts to feed on itself. This is that magic moment, that inflection point, where your money finally starts working way harder than you are. And that's the punchline to the whole thing. All that wealth that looks like it appeared overnight, it's almost always the result of decades of quiet, consistent, and frankly, kind of boring discipline. It's completely invisible for years, until suddenly it's obvious.
But look, none of this works without one absolutely crucial ingredient. You have to understand what you're doing. In every single crisis, from Ponzi schemes to crypto meltdowns, the people who get hurt have one thing in common. They put their money into something they couldn't actually explain. So you have to ask yourself the simple question. If you can't explain how it makes money, do you really own an investment, or are you just holding a risk you can't even see?
Which brings us to the final big takeaway. Exposed or prepared? The choice is made long before the crisis ever shows up.
At the end of the day, money is just a tool. It doesn't have any magical power on its own. The real power, the thing that actually transforms lives, is a series of small, disciplined decisions. It's the decision to save instead of spend, the decision to learn instead of just speculate, to be patient instead of chasing some quick win. And you just repeat those, day after day, year after year. That's what builds a truly resilient life.
Look, the next crisis is coming. That's not a possibility, it's a guarantee. So the only real question is, will it expose you or will it find you prepared? Because the answer to that question isn't decided in the middle of the storm. It's being decided by the choices you're making right now, today.